Whoa, 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 whoa. I overshot that time. You know, this is how you know how stupid I am. Oh my goodness. Oh, gee whiz. Anyway, gee whiz. Who says gee whiz anymore? I like it. Golly, Superman. That's like, what's his name? Jimmy Olsen. We love you, Jimmy. Anyway, another edition number 7 of Musicians on Couches Drinking Coffee. So this time, you know, I was so busy making sure things were right because in the last couple, there's been some problems in the first 20 minutes and getting everything set up that I didn't make myself coffee. But my special guest did. So that's good then. That's good then. So let's talk about my special guest for a minute. So, you know, sometimes when you use the word great, you use the word great in its hyperbole, right? You know, you go down the local bar or whatever, and there's the band playing their, you know, the 90 millionth version of Mustang Sally that you've ever heard, and you go, oh man, that was great. And really you mean it was okay. You know, it wasn't awful. But, so I don't like to use the word, but I get criticized, by the way. I get criticized because I don't like the word, I don't like to use the word great. Even when I hear people use it about myself, right? Because I don't think so. I don't think so. Like in drumming, I'm a drummer. Yes, I am. I'm a drummer. For if you haven't noticed, the name of the channel is called The Drum Mission, and I do a lot of drum technique, and I used to play a lot. I don't play so much anymore because of the pandemic. But yes, I am a drummer. And
I'm in love with him and I intend to marry him.
A drummer? Well, even a real musician, he just makes a noise.
You don't know what you're talking about.
If he played the violin or the piano, anything that made sense, but the drums.
Drummer. And, you know, some of my fans, they'll say, oh man, that was great. But even myself, like, in my mind, great is a word I reserve for people like Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, and for some of the young guys, Thomas Pridgen, Matt Garsica, Chris Dave, is freaking amazing. What that dude does with time, I can't even fathom it. Like, I would have to talk about time machines, and I was going down a rabbit hole about time machines today. I don't know why. I would have to get in a time machine and tell myself to practice this stuff and be ahead of everybody, because Chris Dave is amazing. If you haven't watched some of his stuff, you need to get on YouTube and watch the Chris Dave videos and listen to those drum breaks he takes where he plays in I don't know what time he's in, and they all come back in and they know where he is and he knows where he is, but I don't know where he is. All right. Those guys are great. I'm not falsely humble. I'm good. I'm a good player. I got a couple of tricks up my sleeve, and I can probably get you through any gig I'm called to get you through. But I wouldn't use the word great in my category. However, when I'm talking about my next guest, my only guest, I don't know, I guess unless you count this as one long talk show, it would be like 8 hours long or something like that. So, all right. So, I use the word great for him. And by that word great, I don't mean necessarily that he's got the fastest chops or anything like that. I mean great in an all-around sense. First of all, he's 26 years old. 26 years old. 26 years old. All right? He's already played with Iggy Pop, Cyril Neville, produced his own album, nominated for a Grammy. 26 years old. He's a really good guitar player. He's a good vocalist. He music directed one of the bands we're going to find out that he works with. We're going to, in the interview, he's going to talk a little more in depth about that, being the music director. I was not a music director until Carnival Cruise Lines when I was like, I don't know, 52 or something. I don't remember the age that I was at. So that's, 26. So I met this young lad when he was 15. And there was a club I used to play. I think it was Wednesday nights or Tuesday nights. I don't remember exactly. It was called Kelly's in Hamtramck, and it was a jam night. And you know how jam nights go. Me and the guys, it was a trio. And I'm going to mention the bass player to you, James Cloyd, the late, great James Cloyd, who you need to look him up on YouTube as well. James Cloyd, his claim to fame was Albert King. He played with Albert King for 10 years. James Cloyd, one of the greatest bass players I've ever worked with, but beside that, just a really cool guy, He schooled and taught in his own way, not private lessons, that kind of thing, but just they would come to the jams to play with him, to learn how to phrase, to learn how to play a shuffle for guitar players, where to put those upstrokes, all that kind of stuff. Even drummers would go to learn how to groove with him. He was such a great guy for that kind of thing. And he wasn't easy, because he would tell you, stop! Like if you were playing badly. And him and I played together for years and years, 25 years. Not exclusively, but quite a bit for 25 years. We shared many a hotel room together. Anyway, this young 15-year-old kid walks in with his dad to this bar and comes to sit in. And I think James knew him. And I remember James and I talking, 15-year-olds, I don't know. And then the kid plays with us. And he's good. Now, while I'm a teacher, I've been teaching private drum lessons for 30 years. I think I can count on one hand, I don't even know if I need my whole hand, in 15-year-olds that I've worked with that really not only learn the lesson, but come back with it embellished and improvised. Usually it's just, most of the kids just try to learn the bare minimum of what I taught them. And they think that somehow, Beyonce's going to call them tomorrow. But, or they're just doing it because their mom and dad told them they got to do something. So, but not so with this gentleman. And I haven't mentioned his name yet. Ari was good. And then he would come back the next week and be better. And then would come back the next week and be better. His name is Ari Teitel. If you are in your 20s, you need to watch this interview. You need to find out how to do it. You need to find out and watch, listen not only his words, but his spirit, the perseverance. Because, like I said, I don't like to use that word great. That word great is thrown around so much. So I'm really into not using words stupidly. There's a important word, stupidly. I'm bringing that back, by the way. Anyway, Ari Teitel. He is great. Anyway, I want you to sit back, grab the kids, grab the family, grab the dog, but more importantly, grab the cat, because I'm more partial to cats. I like cats. Dogs, I don't know. Dogs, it's too needy, too clingy for me. Anyway, grab the cat, some popcorn, some kitty treats, all right? Tuna or something, I don't know, and enjoy this interview. And watch and listen and get your notepad out and take notes, my friend. Take notes. All right, let's get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ari Teitel. Hope I said his name right. how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
All right, so let's start this off officially. I'm recording, and welcome to the seventh edition of Musicians on Couches Drinking Coffee. So unfortunately, I don't have any coffee right now, but that's okay. I drank too much today.
It's the same here.
All right. So Mr. Ari Teitel, let's start. First of all, I did some research. I got my official Spider-Man clipboard. You can see the webbing here. That was Walmart, $2.99. Very good deal. I hate Walmart, by the way. So I remember you used to come into Kelly's in Hamtramck with your dad, and you'd play with me and James Cloyd.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
All right. And
The great James Cloyd.
Huh?
The great James Cloyd. The late, great James Cloyd.
Yes. And he passed away last year, sadly. And him and I stayed good friends. We had played with Eric Goldwell for a long time. So let's just go take a trip back to that time a little bit, because you would know more about it than I would, actually. I remember you sitting in, and I think James and kind of working with you on shuffles and all that kind of stuff. How old were you when you were doing that?
I probably met James when I was 15 or 16.
So do you remember about what age you were coming into Kelly's?
Around that time.
So that happens, and you're in Detroit, and then you leave to go to school, and take me there. Where do you go, and all that kind of stuff? Let's tell all the folks that are listening, all four of them.
So I went to Michigan State right after high school and got my degree in jazz studies. And then I moved down to New Orleans right after I graduated.
Oh, so pretty much at like 22 years old?
22, I came down to New Orleans, yep.
All right. So that's pretty young. Now, New Orleans is the place. I was with Carnival Cruise Lines, so New Orleans was always that stop,
Mm-hmm.
Katrina, Carnival helped build the dock, and we used to stop in New Orleans and hang there. So how does that go for you in New Orleans when you get there, and are you going to the jams? What are you doing? How are you getting known in New Orleans?
So I would go to the jam sessions. I'd kind of, I met some musicians, and they would say, hey, come out to this gig and sit in, or come to this gig and sit in. So I moved to New Orleans. 8 days later, I had my first gig.
Cool.
So I sat in a gig, and someone who I happened to know from college was playing trumpet. So next week he called me on a Sunday morning. He said, hey, can you do this gig in 2 hours? I said, sure. And then then the drummer on that gig started calling me for his gig. So there's kind of this snowball effect.
Well, that's cool.
But one thing led to another. And then let's see, 3 months after I moved down, 3 or 4 months after I moved down, that's when I started working with Chawa, the Mardi Gras Indian band that I
oh yes, I saw some clips of that. It's pretty cool. So how long? And so, is that still together? Is that still happening now?
Yeah. So Chawa, this is my 4th year with Chawa. So in 2018, we recorded our second album, the first Chawa album that I was on, and that got a Grammy nomination. So that was really big for us. And then I became the musical director, and then co-produced the most recent album and that's coming out April 12th.
Cool.
And the first 2 singles are out now, which for those of you watching, you can check that out on Spotify or Apple Music.
What's the names of them? Say the names of the 2 singles.
Wild Man and My People. And if you look at and the album is called My People, and you can also pre-order the CD as well.
So music directing, that's really cool. So I told you I did Carnival for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 3 years, I was the music director. Now I went to Berklee College of Music, and I played enough piano, not to do a gig, but to write and arrange and all that kind of stuff. So music directing, I had fun because I could hire and fire the guys I wanted. That's what I liked best about it. And I could organize the show the way I wanted it to be, but it was a headache sometimes being the music director in that vein, just getting guys to show up to rehearsals and all that kind of stuff and making sure I had it right. And then the Sinatra tribute guy didn't like the sax player and all that kind of stuff. All the politics. So how are you digging being the music director?
Yeah, it's cool. I've was able to hire some of my friends on the gig, when guys left the band.
How many pieces in that band?
So we have 8.
Okay.
And then sometimes in the studio, we're even augmenting that with a percussion player, even more horn players. So we have 3 horn players, a lead singer, and then a rhythm section.
Oh, all right. All right. And I've been asking, we've been talking about this with everybody. So how's the pandemic affecting New Orleans with gigging? I mean, for me, I just started gigging again with like Tasha Owens. You know Tasha, right? Mm-hmm. One of her regular guys. So she just it's just kind of starting up again up here, and it's kind of depressing. But I know New Orleans has that strip or a couple of strips.
Yeah. So right now, I think music is happening more so in port shows and outdoor shows. So there's been these kind of new outdoor venues that have popped up. There aren't too many now, but I think in the next couple months things may start to open up. We'll start seeing clubs open at half capacity, but I haven't done any normal club dates since the shutdown.
They still have things closed? Is it like right now we're at 50% capacity? Is it the same there?
So bars that have I think restaurant permits can open up more, but the problem is most of the clubs aren't restaurants here.
Right.
So your spots like Maple Leaf and Tipitina's have more red tape.
Right. All right. So the music director has been cool for you. Do you want to do more of that, or do you want to, or do less of that, or do you prefer just being the guitar guy?
Every job is unique. So with that being said, I guess I'm really open to any kind of thing. Sometimes it's fun to just sit back and play guitar. Some gigs I'll do more singing.
Right.
Sometimes I'm in more of a producer role. So I'm producing a singer-songwriter named Sarah Sims, her album, and that's been interesting because there's even a couple tracks on it that I didn't play on. So that was definitely different. And I produced a single for a band from down here called Jay and the Causeways, and I didn't play any guitar on that, so that was definitely different and an interesting experience.
Kind of cool when you're not the main guy. I've done that a few times, and that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm just I write, although the 4 people that have heard my music, they like it a lot. I just want to say those 4 guys, they like it a lot, and most of them have cashed the checks I gave them, so it's pretty good. I write a lot of kind of jazzy fusiony stuff, right? And I'm just on piano and I write my ideas. But a couple of times, just because I wanted to hear it from the outside being played, I had another drummer come and play it. It's kind of interesting to be outside. for me not to say anything to the drummer about how I'm hearing it differently than they're hearing it. Like I want it to be organic. I want to hear what they do. So
Yep.
my mouth I found to be hard and say, oh no, do that more like a bossa and then not say that and let them do it the way they want it. Tell me about your experience and when you hear a guitar player and then maybe they're doing something on a tune that you would not do. You know, are you approaching that from let me make it my way or let them do it their way or
Yeah, so what I mostly listen to for is if stuff is clashing either rhythmically or harmonically, because I want the player to bring their themselves to the project and their
right,
creativity. Um, so I mean, yeah, there's projects where sure I could play bass on it or I could play guitar, but someone else would play something that I would never have thought of. And that's where you get kind of the magic in rec-
right,
um so but then there's situations where you might work with guys who aren't as strong players, so you need to kind of tell them exactly what to play and put limitations on them and mostly make sure they're not overplaying um because like if you have a gospel chops drummer and the band leader insists on having them
right.
on the record, like you might have to rein them in, and you gotta like so like if for a session like that, send them a bunch of like James Gadson or Bernard Purdy recordings, be like,
Right, right, right,
this is how you should play.
right. We
um
had the same trouble on ships. You'd get a lot of, especially with horn players. Uh, in the Sinatra tribute show, I had a guy, and he became my number one sax guy. But he came on, and during the solo sections, he became Mr. Bebop.
right, that's the other. There's always Mr. Bebop. You got to deal with Mr.
Yeah,
Bebop.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I used to call him the jazz Nazi. And so he would be doing these bebop solos, doing like "Lady Is a Tramp." And I remember the first thing that the lead singer, was kind of his show, and it was $1 million show by Carnival, said, "All right, you got to get rid of him." Like, and he was good, but I had to sit down with him and say, "Hey, man, like, just play the melody for 8 bars. Try that."
Right.
I mean, but after the course of time, it took about a month, and I kept postponing the firing, but I was being told to fire him by the lead singer, and he finally became one of the faves. But I kept working with him and saying, "Hey, I'll put a bebop night on the ship so you can do your thing. But when you're doing that thing, you embellish the melody." And that's what those guys did. If you listen to the old Dizzy tracks and the old Count Basie stuff, they kind of played the melody that Frank was doing and embellished on it. They didn't do a lot of scales and stuff. You know what I mean? Even guitar solos, it's like that. If you listen to the old Beatles records, a lot of times Harrison would just quote pieces of the melody and stuff. He wasn't going to be shredding during his 8 bars. It's very
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's where I think like a lot of guitar players mess up. They're chasing like the Stevie Ray thing, or they want to shred or whatever. It's like
right.
no, what you need to be listening to is like Cornell Dupree, uh,
Right.
what's David T. Walker. Like that's how you make money.
All right. So listening to your stuff, Mr. Ari, and when I listen to your personal stuff and stuff you used to do here with the Fun House, and when I used to jam with you, it's very R&B, very blues soul, and then you get Iggy Pop, who is a guy that's as far away from what my perceived style is of yours. It would be Iggy. All right. So how does
Right.
it come to be? How do you meet him and play with him? And let's walk us down that story.
So what's interesting is I got the gig through so I actually the funny thing is I haven't played with Iggy. I've never met Iggy, but I'm on 3 tracks with him. Um So I met his producer. His producer is his name is Laurent Thomas, and Laurent does this really eclectic kind of stuff. He's like a bebop trumpet player, and then has like this punk aesthetic. So it's like imagine this crazy like punk and rock like some stuff with even like maybe a Radiohead vibe that has all this like bebop harmony.
That's cool.
So like really, really cool, interesting music. So Laron was playing for Giles Peterson's series that he did in New Orleans during Jazz Fest. Um that was like broadcast on BBC. He needed a guitar player. The guy who was supposed to play guitar couldn't make it, recommended me. I got the call to play for Laron. So Laron liked what I could do because he liked that I could like play all this bebop harmony, but then also rock out
Right.
and play with pedals and stuff when and kind of just do what the tune called for. Um, and same with the other guys in the band. He dug how this like these New Orleans guys approached his music. So um, about maybe a little under a year later, um, he called up the bass player and said, "Hey, I need you guys to track a demo down here, or down in New Orleans. I'll like kind of give you guys a sketch of what the song is gonna be, and I'm gonna pitch the song to Iggy. It's a demo. He might use it, he might not." So we didn't think anything of it. We just did this, thought we were doing a demo, got our money, cool. Then about a year and a half later, I got a text that said from a friend that said, "Hey, congrats on being on Iggy's album. I just read a review and you're acknowledged as a guitar player." So I had no idea that the track was gonna make
Oh, wow.
the
What's the
record.
name of that track?
The track is called James Bond.
She wants to be your James Bond. She wants to be your James Bond. She might stand in your way, but still.
Yeah, so then I did another track for Laron that it was actually Laron's track that Iggy's a feature on. I played guitar and bass on that. And then just in November, Laron said, "Hey, we're doing this. Iggy wrote this COVID song. Can you play on that? And I want you to play guitar and bass." And a month later, that came out.
Did they send you where you went by the drum tracks and all that were already done and you played to them?
So they actually only sent me the demo with like Iggy's vocal. So he isolated Iggy's vocal. I had to put that to a click and I had to chop up the vocal to get it on the click. I played guitar and bass to the click, and then the drummer played after that.
Oh, that must have been a little bit of a challenge, I would think.
Yeah, it was definitely it was interesting. So I did like 2 guitar tracks, and then after the drums were on, Laron called me back, said, "Hey, can you do this third?" He said, "Think like a Chili Peppers kind of like funky rock part." So added that.
So when they gave you James Bond, did you get the tracks to that? Was that already done, the drum tracks, or did you do that?
No, so we tracked that guitar, bass, and drums.
All right. And then he just inserted everything else. So,
Yeah. So Laron, he processed, all my guitars and stuff to put some cool effects on them, and then Laron played trumpet. We'll see.
Was it a good experience for you?
Yeah. And like I said, the weird thing is I've never met Iggy. I've just been on his songs.
It's kind of cool though. It's kind of cool.
But like, but him and his label, they give me credit. So
Well, maybe if he tours again, he comes down to New Orleans, you'll get to come in and play
yeah.
or something like that. That's what guys are doing now. And so another name I saw on the list of your credits was, I guess that's right, Cyril Neville.
Cyril Neville, yeah. So I've there's been a bunch of times where I've like kind of sat in with him, but then I played his 70th birthday and he sang with I played with his nephew's band. And we were doing like Fire on the Bayou, like your normal New Orleans kind of funk standard.
Right. Well, the Meters are from there and all that stuff. So
right. Well, and Cyril sang with the Meters.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. So Cyril is Art Neville's brother, the youngest Neville brother, and then of course with the Neville brothers, he sang and played percussion. So the story is like the Meters didn't have a front man, and they were going to tour with the Stones, so they needed to hire a front man to do this tour. And Cyril's one of the best funk and soul singers, and still is to this day. I mean, he can still belt, which you don't see old guys doing all the time.
So what have all you done with Cyril?
Like I said, it's just been little appearances in like one gig that he sang on.
To me, that would be one of those moments where you get to play with like a little bit of musical royalty.
Oh yeah. That's definitely because he's someone I listen to. It's someone I look up to. One of my favorite singers. So
when I was with Dick Wagner and touring with Dick, he from out the Alice Cooper guy, you know him, right?
Yep.
And when he passed, Mark Farner did a bunch of the tributes, and so we played behind Mark. And I'll be honest, that was I grew up listening to Grand Funk in my Chevy Monza with an 8-track tape. You know what I mean? And getting to play behind the guy I grew up listening to was kind of a thing. It showed. Actually, I got choked up while I was playing. Anyway, so what are other? How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking, Mr. R?
26.
26. So really, this has happened in 4 years for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. So you attribute that to moving to New Orleans, or do you attribute that to some luck, or what do you think some of the success is due to, besides talent? We know you got that.
Yeah, I think it's being in the right place at the right time, but being prepared when I'm at the right place at the right time.
I got a lot of musicians that watch my channel, especially in the area, and I talk about that with all my students, like showing up on time, having the charts written out if you need to, whatever you need to do to make it work so that you show up and you sound good. Right?
Yeah, it's that, and like I make sure that I know everything like the record before I do my own thing to it.
Right.
So I think that's whenever I show up on a gig, that because there's a lot of situations where I'll show up cold, no rehearsal, and I just have the songs to learn, and then then you kind of get that reputation as someone who will learn the music and show up prepared.
Right.
So I think that helps because a lot of people they're not willing to put in the work, or they're late, or they don't understand the value of playing the record.
Exactly.
So, and like especially if you're playing old material, it's like the parts are kind of the essence of the music. So if I'm playing September, I'm gonna make sure I play the bum, 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 bum. I'll and get that to feel and sound like the record.
When I first got Dick Wagner, I was called to sub for somebody, and I had no idea. And I had the song list, but I didn't know the new arrangements or anything like that. And so I went and I learned. They were Alice Cooper tunes, most of them. So I just went and learned the record, like what John Check played on a bunch of it. So I learned all of his stuff. I went and did it, and they had not been doing it like the record. And Wagner turns around after between sets, there's only two sets, an intermission. It was at a theater, and says, "Man, I haven't heard anybody play it like the record in 20 years. You want the gig?" Touring him with the next 2 years. It was me and him. So and the rest of the band. But I just felt like, these are iconic tunes.
Yep.
Everybody knows. I don't want to walk in there and do it Glenn's way. What do I know? I'm going to do it the way that was there. And then if they want to change it, well, they can just tell me. And I'll be happy.
Or there's the times when you get called just to be you.
Right.
They want you to come up with the part.
Right.
But it's like you learn how to do that by imitating others.
Right. We're all stews. So I say everybody's a stew. Like Glenn is a little bit of Gadd, a little bit of Ringo, a little bit of Bonham, and because of the pandemic, a little more of Caliuta. I've been working on a lot of his licks because I got more time. And you put the stew together, and then what comes out is your interpretation of all those things that are inside. So let's talk a little bit more about New Orleans. When I was there way back when, this is going 2005 to 2012, I was there a lot. There was a really happening scene where, every night of the week there were people were playing, and there were clubs with bands and jams. I know the pandemic has ruined some of that. Do you play every night there when things were good? Are you playing in the clubs every night? Let's talk about that scene.
Yeah, so I would say 5 nights a week to every night. I mean, sometimes there's weeks where I'm playing like 10 gigs in a week.
Wow.
Because it's a small city, you can play 2 gigs in a night. So I might have like a 7 o'clock, like kind of dinner time gig, get off at 10, and then make my 11 o'clock gig.
Right.
At the Maple Leaf or whatever.
Is that they do a lot of those late night gigs like New York does, where the gig starts around 11 and it goes to like 2:30 or something like that?
Yeah, so if you have like kind of the main spot at a club like Maple Leaf, DBA, or Blue Nile, you're either going to start at sometime between 10 and 11:30, and then at the Maple Leaf, if people are having a good time, you might play till 3.
So there's a question I've asked everybody, and I've had some cool people on the show so far. Sandy Gennaro, who used to play with the Monkees, and Cyndi Lauper, toured with her for a long time back in the 80s, who definitely is up high on the list of rock icons, I would suppose, Cyndi Lauper. And I always ask this question: can you point to a time, because I can point it to myself, I know about when it was, where you decided, and you're closer to it than me. For me, it was like when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But for you, it'd be, when did you decide, okay, I think I want to do this? Because music is not an easy life, and it's not. Because sometimes it looks like there's not very much on the schedule. Who knows? Music can be very up and down. All sorts of things can happen. Pandemics close the clubs, and you can't play, and all these kind of things happen. When did you decide, yeah, I'm not gonna do law or be an accountant or anything like that. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think end of high school. I decided music school was gonna be the route. Um, I and I thought that music school would maybe give me the kind of the backup plan to teach. Um,
Right.
but I haven't really taught since I moved to New Orleans. I was gigging full time and just living off gigs. So
What was the catalyst? Because for me, it was Marcy Couture. I'm telling you that right now. When I was 14 in New York, Marcy Couture asked me out after a show with a garage band, and that's why I'm a musician. It's her fault. She's married now in New York with somebody else, but she's the actual reason I think why I'm a musician.
yeah,
Asked me out before until her.
I think it was a combination of things. I think in Detroit, once I started going to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra Civic Jazz program, I saw that there were these teachers that were playing at a high level and also gigging. I saw like it's possible to have a somewhat comfortable life playing music, and you don't have to be a star,
Right.
and you don't have to be a starving artist. Like that,
Right.
there, you know, if you're willing to put in the work, um, you know, you can have a nice life as a musician.
I think it requires more work than hoping that a band's going to do well. I really do. Even for a drummer, like for me, the way I've done it all my life is I read really well. I did go to Berklee College of Music, right? And I'm a good reader, but be prepared to play anything.
Mm-hmm.
I've done reggae gigs, straight up reggae gigs, cruise ship gigs. I toured with Godspell, Dick Wagner. I mean, the list of from jazz to reggae and everything in between. If the phone rings, I'm saying yes, and I'll figure out how to do it on the way to the gig.
Yep.
And even if I'm not sure when I get the call, oh wow, I never played that style before. All right,
Yeah.
I better listen to a bunch of it and figure out what's going on, and that's the trick. And
Yep.
just in case there's one new young guitarist, is your secret to that? Learning, what's coming up and being open to stuff.
What's my? Could you repeat?
Your little thing for that. I mean, to be successful, like I was just saying, I immerse myself in whatever.
Oh yeah.
I have to do.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Is to listen to everything and be open to everything, and to not have an ego about it. Because I mean, I'm open to play any genre of music as long as it's good. If I get to play reggae with the best reggae band, then that's awesome. Or if I'm playing jazz with people who can swing real hard, nothing beats that. If I'm playing funk, I want to play with the funkiest people.
Right.
So yeah, and then so just studying everything and making sure that I learn it authentically. Because that's the trick.
Right.
Because you'll see a blues guy go on a jazz gig and he's might not be playing the right language.
Right.
Or vice versa. Mr. Bebop goes on the funk gig.
Right.
And I know. Hold up there, John Coltrane.
Yeah. Yeah, play something we can sing a little bit.
Yeah,
Well, and there's knowing your weeks, and like I know, like although I played a bunch of bebop, I don't consider, like for myself, I don't get a lot of calls to play bebop. Just I don't get a lot of calls. So I when I do get a call that's going to be in the show, I've got to really work it up a little bit because it's not in my general thing that I have to do. More the pocket guy, 2 and 4 and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be open to that. when I get a call for the reggae thing, I like reggae, and for some reason I play it well. I don't know why. I really don't know why, but I listen to it. If I get a call for 2 weeks from now, I got a reggae gig. All I'll listen to in the car while I'm running on the treadmill is reggae. That's all I'll listen to, so that that becomes part of the way that they approach it. The way that those drummers approach it will become part of my language momentarily.
Well, yeah, and I think like the way you play is you're gonna groove and make it feel good and play a good time. So
Yeah,
that's kind of the trick. So even if you're even if you have a jazz gig, even if you can't chop out and you can't play like the best Max Roach solo, that doesn't matter because you're gonna show up and you're gonna lay down good time
right.
and give the people something they can work with. So I think that's really important. If you can at least groove in any style and make it feel good, and not only if you play drums, but if you play guitar or bass or keyboard.
Right.
And especially for me as a guitar player, they really want a rhythm guitar player.
Right.
And if you can play a good solo, that's a bonus.
Well, even when I had the big band on cruise ships, when I would hire a guitar player for those bands, I didn't want a John McLaughlin. I wanted Freddie Green.
Yep, exactly.
Play those quarter note chords all the way through, because especially in the big band, the guitar player may never get a solo. There may never be a moment to do that, but I'm going to need you to do, because really my interpretation of big band, and this is my own personal thing, the bass, and if you have a Freddie Green guy, they're the time. The drummer plays with the time, but he's also color. He's also bringing in accents and bringing in fills and setting.
Exactly.
And and I would always have I've got my chops and I work on all my rudiments and all that kind of stuff. But especially on cruise ships, you work to a click. You do that swing into a click. So I tell my students all the time, you don't need to be Jack DeJohnette, but you need to swing well.
Yep.
You don't have to be Jack DeJohnette, but you got to swing, because if you can swing well, you can play swing, big band, bebop, and you can shuffle. The swing covers all those categories. Actually, reggae swings, so you can even fit that into reggae. So and that's my thing with music. It's just, so what's your plans, dude? When the pandemic, when do you think New Orleans might open up more full, where you're playing 5 nights again? And
I've gotten actually this month I have some gigs. So I'm going out to Colorado day after St. Patrick's Day to play with a bass player named Tony Hall. Incredible bass player, vocalist, badass guitarist too. And Tony played with the Neville Brothers.
ooh,
And then the band Dumpster Funk, he's in that. And then he did a lot of work with Daniel Lanois in the 90s. Like Emmylou Harris, Jewel played with Dave Matthews. So yeah, one of the great bass players down here. And so I'll play with his band every now and then. We do like more 70s funk stuff and some of his originals. So we're going to Denver and playing with a great drummer named Adam Deutsch.
I don't know.
From the band Lettuce, if you've heard of them. He played with Average White Band too.
Oh, okay.
That was his first gig. And he's on a lot of John Scofield's projects.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, like real. He's got one of the best pocket drummers around. That's it, like as far as modern funk guys kind of go.
Cool.
Him, and then keyboard player named Joey Porter from the Motet. So we're gonna be in Denver.
And it's the bass player's band, Tony Hall?
Yep, the bass player's band. Yep.
What kind of material?
Most 70s funk stuff. Um, but we'll sprinkle in a little rock sometimes. We'll do a Grateful Dead thing.
All right, all right.
Yeah, I mean Tony can play anything. He's really just nasty bass player. Nasty,
That's
nasty
cool.
bass player.
That's cool. Do you have regulars that you work in the clubs with in New Orleans? A regular band that you work with, whatever, more a month than other people, or your own thing? Because I know you didn't you recently produce your own album too? Your solo.
Yeah, so I did my album a little before I moved here. With the guys that I'd play with in the Funhouse, Skeeto, Phil Hale,
Right, right.
Randolph. Um, but Skeeto, I actually worked with Tony Hall in the Trey Anastasio band.
Oh, all right.
It's kind of so before I moved down here, Skeeto was like, "Hey man, look out for Tony Hall. Tell him I sent you."
I saw a couple of clips with you. I don't know if you're still doing it, or if it's a regular gig with the New Orleans big band or swing band.
Oh yeah. Forgot about that.
Tell me
Yeah.
about that, because that looked from the clips I saw, that looked really cool. Is that a regular thing, or
So the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra. So we play monthly, and it has their they have their own venue. The New
oh,
Orleans Jazz Market. So it's kind of like New Orleans' own Jazz at Lincoln Center kind of thing. And we bring in different guest artists each month, and a lot of times we'll do tributes. So and then there's some concerts that happen annually. So Dee Dee Bridgewater will do the winter concert, like the Christmas concert, and then we backed Dee Dee at the Detroit Jazz Fest.
oh,
Um, that was really cool. We've done a Coltrane tribute.
how long
Uh,
you been working with them? How long since you've been down there, or sure?
I think I started with them fall of 2018. So I met the drummer. So the drummer's his name's Adonis Rose, and he worked a lot with Nicholas Payton and Terrence Blanchard and Wynton Marsalis when he was young.
Ooh,
So Adonis became the artistic director of the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, and we were on like a fusion gig together. And then he messaged me a few months later, said, "Hey, um, can you do this Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute we're doing?" Because he knew that I probably knew a lot of the guitar parts
right.
already. So I did that. And then the next tribute they did was Aretha Franklin. Of course, I knew all that. I was like, I'm from
Right, right.
Detroit. You better call me for that.
Yeah, that's a Detroit thing, man.
Yeah. So and then he said, yeah, he said like you can read and play straight ahead too. Yeah, so then he's like, cool, you got the gig. Um
Great.
so
And that's
yeah.
straight up chart reading, right? You're sight reading on that one, or they rehearse? Are they rehearsing regularly before the show?
Yeah, so that's interesting because we won't rehearse until like 4 days before the gig, and we'll do 4 days of back-to-back rehearsals, so like 4-hour rehearsals all
Oh, all
week
right.
leading up to the concert. All different material, and then some of the guys in the band arrange. Sometimes they'll contract that out. Excuse me. Yeah, so or for Detroit Jazz Fest, we kind of played stuff that had been in our book before. So I think we just had 1 or 2 rehearsals. Um, but of course, everyone's a great musician in that group. But see, what's interesting about this is we're playing completely different material every time. So it's and a lot of times stylistically very different. So you
Oh,
have to
wow.
so and that can be challenging because there might be a time where it's a funk tribute, like um Prince, and it's like, okay, I know this. I already know the Prince arrangement, and I know like the record, but maybe the big band arrangement's a little different. So I have to like read and then still play with that like Prince guitar feel. So that's like a good challenge.
Right.
All right. Well, anyway, we're wrapping it up anyway. It's been good. We've talked to good seeing you again. Haven't seen you since you were 15 or 16, I think, or 17. Or
Yeah, I saw you like once in Lansing, I think.
I think it was with Nagy and Alfredson at Moriarty's.
Yeah, yep. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So it's been good talking to you, and I haven't seen you in a while since Moriarty's, and I hope things keep going well for you. And I am a fan of Iggy Pop, so I'll be listening to play more with him. I am a rock guy deep down, you know. Have very good luck in what you got coming up.
Thanks.
All right. See you soon.
All right, Glenn. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm gonna try. Lord, I'm gonna try. Don't make me cry. Try to my tears. Don't make me try in my own tears.
Our recital